Hello, BookTube. Well, what a difference a day makes, huh? Yesterday was a disaster. It was a perfect storm of video hostile elements. The Wi-Fi was wonky for a large chunk of the day. I had a massive allergy attack that lasted for hours and that left me feeling so debilitated that my hands were actually shaking. There was noise outside, of course, there's always noise here, but there was extra noise, and it was unmitigated because it was boiling hot, so I have to keep the windows open. I made the mistake of taking the AC units out of the windows of a house in New England at the beginning of October. That was a big mistake. I won't repeat that again. All of those things added up together to just make it a day where I just thought, you're not going to be able to make any videos. I made a video because I didn't want to break the heart of a little tyke out there named Michael K. Vaughan. I didn't want to break his heart by skipping our comic book video, but I dropped everything else. But today, most of those elements have healed themselves. The congestion, at least temporarily, seems to be gone. The slurpy nose, the burning eyes, the shivers all through the body seem to be gone. Yes, the background noise is still going to be audible. You're still going to hear traffic and the incredibly racist tauntings of Boston school children getting out of school, and maybe a little bit of construction work, and also probably some metal-on-metal bit drilling. Somebody right in this vicinity seems to be building a spaceship to escape Earth. So I can't really complain about the noise, can I, when the object is so sensible? But the reason that's not mitigated is because it's 85 degrees with 97% humidity, so there's no way to close the windows. Again, there's no way to close the windows. I always used to scorn, every year before this year, I used to scorn people who put their AC units in the beginning of June and then just leave them in all winter, even though it's freezing their rooms inside. And I wish I'd been one of those. It was drastically premature of me. At the beginning of October, I did not in any way conceive that summer just wouldn't end. That summer is just going to keep going. It never crossed my mind that in just a few days before Halloween, it would be in the mid-80s with 97% humidity in Boston, with no end in sight. That is just the way things are going to be. Just get used to it. I did errands this morning in shirt sleeves. I take the little bean for our walks in shirt sleeves, shorts, and sandals. When there should be already have been a light dusting of snow at least once, and a couple of close calls at a hard frost. So the windows have to stay open, which means the noise level has to be a little on the high side. Baby, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, aren't you pretty? Our early walk, very early this morning, first thing, was done in complete solitude. It was lovely. And then our later walk, our mid-morning walk, I swear, it was done, the whole of that mid-morning walk was done to a chorus of different people saying, "Hi, Frida!" Just a chorus of different, must have happened a dozen times on that walk, of people who, our early morning walk, our first thing walk is a little too early for anybody. But the mid-morning walk is when everybody's out and about. It's when they're dealing with their garbage cans. It's when they're maybe just got back from walking their own dogs, or when they're headed out for work. And and she has fans. She has lots and lots of fans in this neighborhood. This is, you don't get when I'm in the other room. You don't get the bean. I thought that my Basset Hound Lucy had fans in this neighborhood. She did. She had lots and lots of fans in this neighborhood. Like everybody else, people just forgot that I had two dogs. My pointer was so friendly and self-effacing, but Lucy was an opera star. she was well known in this neighborhood, and I kind of thought that would be the peak for me of being in a star's entourage. But honestly speaking, no disrespect to Lucy, but it's not even close. I think probably because there's only one dog to pay attention to here, and she's so memorable that everybody remembers her name. So anyway, now that the throat clearing is over with, I wanted to get along with the mail. We've got a bunch of mail that I want to go through. No boxes, but plenty of packages and some periodicals. And the first periodical is this lovely thing. This is the Bedford Times Press from scenic Bedford, Iowa. Those are city council candidates. And a little bit of profile of them. Very tiny little full-color paper. You've got the front page. You've got lots and lots of sports coverage. Plenty of independent ads. Got this in the mail. My first one. It's the Bedford Times Press from Bedford, Iowa. Just thought I'd mention it. That's all. Then we have the Vineyard Gazette. This is the not color, but gorgeous black and white. Full color, or full, look at the detail of that. These black and white photos are just incredible. And they run all throughout here. This is the newspaper, one of the newspapers of the island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, where I have the honor to be the book reviewer. But I don't think, actually, I need to check. I don't think I'm in this issue. I don't think I have a book on my docket for the Gazette at the moment. No Vineyard bookshelf for this issue. The book coverage in the Vineyard Gazette is called the Vineyard Bookshelf. It's very often, almost always me. But the Martha's Vineyard has for a long time been a vacation spot, which means it booms in the summer, and the population dwindles by a factor of 10, 20, 30, 50 after Labor Day. And again, all of those people streaming to the Vineyard Ferry, driving to the Vineyard Ferry, winding up their timeshares, closing up their houses, battening down the windows, none of them anticipated that they would have 2 full months more of summer weather, of wide open weather, shirt sleeves weather, swimming weather. No one imagined that. Otherwise, I imagine a whole bunch of those people would have stayed. But one of the problems with writing for a seasonal paper is that the books sort of dry up. so I will probably have a few more books before the end of the year, but not anything like the steady stream that was happening during the summer. One of the great treats of mine this summer, writing for the Vineyard Gazette, was when vacations of friends of mine who were vacationing on the vineyard coincided with the week when a review of mine was running. So they would go to, the Main Street to get fudge or homemade ice cream or maybe do a little antiquing. And when you do that, you go to the 7-Eleven or the whatever, and you pick up the paper. You pick up the Vineyard Gazette. And it was an extra treat for those friends vacationing from all around the world on the vineyard to go to the shop, pick it up, and find a review from me. It was an extra treat. It put me in for a bit of ribbing. One of them said, "You are inescapable." That is not true, but I would like to be. And then there's also the TLS, the Times Literary Supplement, the greatest literary journal in the English-speaking world. Unlike many other literary journals in the English-speaking world, the TLS has never actually dropped me a little note, which is a shame. But this one had a fantastic piece by someone we've just seen on this channel, Peter Parker, who wrote Houseman Country, a book that I reread. I found it and reread it, and it is even better than I remembered, and less categorizable. I just love it. I don't know what happened to my original copy. It was full of, Houseman Country got a lot of reviews. It was reviewed basically everywhere. The TLS reviewed it, the London Review of Books, the New York Review of Books, New York Times. I collected all of those reviews and carefully clipped them and trimmed them and dated them and folded them and put them in my own copy of Houseman Country, and I have no idea why I got rid of it. But I found another copy just recently and reread it, and it was terrific. Better even than my high estimation of it when I first read it. And Peter Parker has a piece here on Ian Forster's novel Morris. It was worth it is the title there, and it's a really, really good piece. I saw it, I read it in this issue of the TLS and loved it and thought, okay, well, there's a lot of stuff in this TLS that you won't be keeping, but you'll certainly be keeping that. You'll want to clip out that essay on Morris and trim it and date it and fold it and tuck it into your copy of Morris. And I bet if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you can finish this anecdote for me, can't you? I don't have a copy of Morris by Ian Forster. I thought I had the Penguin Classic. I looked in my Penguin wall. I don't have Morris anymore. I don't have it in any other format either. So I need to fix that. I don't know how I'll go about it, but I need to fix that. I also, I thought, I thought, okay, I was stunned and aghast that I don't have a copy of Morris by Ian Forster. Once I come to grips with the reality of that, I thought, okay, well, you don't have that. You need to make a mental note to get a copy of that, book. But in the meantime, you can take this folded review. You're not going to get rid of it. The piece is too good to get rid of. You can take this folded review and you can put it in your copy of the Norton Critical Edition of Howard's End. And I don't have the Norton Critical Edition of Howard's End. I did once upon a time. I don't anymore. So then I thought, all right, the ultimate fallback position here is that you could take that folded review and put it in Furbank's biography of Ian Forster. One of the great literary biographies of the 20th century. I don't have a copy. So the review is going to just sit, it's just going to hover in air until I can find a book to put it in. I need to get Furbank's biography of Ian Forster. I need to get the Norton Critical Edition of Howard's End. And I need to get a Penguin Classic or some other kind of classic of Morris. I haven't done any of those things, so the review doesn't have a home. But I have a spot set aside. I have a shelf set aside for clipped, trimmed, and dated, and folded reviews that don't have homes, but that soon will. Or that, I don't want to get rid of. I don't have a home for it yet, but I know a candidate will crop up. So, but then we've got the mail, the long-promised mail. We've got books to go through here. Let's see what we have here for book traffic today. Okay, the first one is ambitious enough, isn't it? This is coming out in late February. This is by Scott Reynolds Nelson, and it's Oceans of Grain, How American Wheat Remade the World. We imagine and define empires as complex systems of political, economic, and social organization and control. But historian Scott Reynolds Nelson argues that understanding the rise and fall of empires requires us to follow the path of a single crop, wheat. He relates the long 19th century story of economic competition between the United States and Russia to act as the breadbasket feeding the people of Europe. Before the Cold War, this rivalry had profound consequences on the global stage, ultimately contributing to the collapses of the Russian, Ottoman, and Chinese empires. While the United States first emerged as an independent nation, Catherine the Great prioritized securing the rich and fertile soils of Ukraine for the Russian Empire, leading to the founding of the city of Odessa. Revolutions and wars across Europe over the succeeding decades created the opportunity for Odessa to prosper as a booming grain port. But when the American Civil War broke out and both empires ended their practices of slavery and serfdom, the advantage shifted dramatically in favor of the United States. Oh, I'm hooked already. This sounds fantastic. Okay, great. This sounds fantastic. All right, so empires, Oceans of Grain, in which the author says that empires run on their stomachs. We'll see what we say about that. Certainly, all of the strongmen who tried to take control of the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago knew to go for the granaries of Egypt. So there's probably a whole lot of sense in that. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my. Okay, well, I can't really show you this. I didn't read the envelope well enough. I can't really show you this. This next one is a Kirkus review. In addition to reviewing for the Vineyard Gazette and a whole bunch of other places, I also review regularly for Kirkus Reviews. The reason I didn't check the envelope is because thanks to COVID, all the stuff I get is ebooks. But every once in a while, I do get a print book, and that's what this is. So I have to set that aside. But it doesn't feel right for me to talk about the book to you, since my reviews for Kirkus are anonymous. So let's just move straight on. Let's move straight on to the next one. I mentioned we don't have any boxes, but we do have 3 big cardboard envelopes. This one will be the last manila envelope before we get. Oh my! Oh, very good. Okay, we saw the advanced copy of this. Now we have the finished copy. Great. What is all of this paperwork? Do you? Oh God, help us! No, you just need to know about the book. Don't need how to rewire my microwave. I just need to know about the book. That's all. We've seen this already though, and this comes out in November, I believe. Is that right? Yes, November. This is James Holland, terrific writer. This is Brothers in Arms. One legendary tank regiment's bloody war from D-Day to VE Day in the finished copy. Nice big book by him. What have we got here? For those of you who didn't get this the first time, celebrated World War II historian James Holland, a fellow of the Royal Historical Society, with his own collection at the Imperial War Museum, has written extensively on World War II to much acclaim. His research ranges from game-changing bombing raids to one of the biggest air battles in history. This winter he returns with another original work of narrative history. Boy, it's so weird to hear the pub sheet just automatically refer to this winter. That is so weird to hear. This chronicles the experiences of a legendary tank regiment, the Sherwood Rangers. In the annals of World War II, certain groups of soldiers stand out, and among the most notable were the Sherwood Rangers. Originally a cavalry unit in the last days of horses in combat, whose officers were landed gentry leading men who largely worked for them, they were switched to mechanized cavalry of tanks in 1942. Winning acclaim in the North Africa campaign, the Rangers then spearheaded one of the D-Day landings in Normandy in June 6, 1944, provided support for the Americans, particularly the 101st Airborne, 82nd Airborne, and 84th Airborne to the Americans. Following D-Day, led the way across France, were the first British troops to cross into Germany, and contributed mightily to Germany's surrender in May of 1945. Great, fantastic. Well, I don't need my arm twisted to read World War II history, and this is an author I really like. So great, fantastic. Let me origami this pub sheet so that the very first thing that I see when I touch it is the release date. The book is important, of course, but for me, the release date is also important. All right, so that goes over here. Great. Now we'll do the cardboard. It's these big cardboard envelopes, probably a series of finished copies. Be nice. Oh, fantastic! Great. Okay, this does not appear to have a pub sheet. This must have come from a warehouse. But in the meantime, this is a finished copy of something we've seen before, but I've read it. In the intervening weeks, I've read it. And this is Adrian Tinniswood's new book. A lot of you will know him from The Long Weekend. This is Noble Ambitions. The fall and rise of the English country house after World War II. And in case you're wondering, yes, both of those gentlemen are naked. But that wasn't required in an English country house. And this is the story of English country houses. It's tremendously good. It's tremendously good. It is, baby. It's tremendously good. Oh, have I blocked your descent? Is that what you're fussing about? Do you want to get down? Oh, okay. She wanted to get down. She didn't want to get all the way down. She has taken to just sort of hanging out right next to me. She doesn't like to be far away from me at any time, but it used to be that whenever she wanted to get down off her perch, it was that she wanted to do a perimeter from ice or just sort of stiff walk around the place just to make sure that everything's in order. Now, a lot of times she just wants to hang out right on the couch. Anyway, to get back to the book, this is tremendously good. Full of personalities, just written with tremendous energy. Let's see what we have here. As the curtain fell on the British Empire, the stately homes of England fell with it. Or so the story goes. It's long been accepted that the 1950s and 60s were a period of steady decline for the mansions and manor houses of Britain. At one point, a country house was being demolished every week in the UK. You hear them? You might be able to hear. They're building their escape ship. But in Noble Ambitions, celebrated historian Adrian Tinniswood shows that the post-war history of family seats and great houses is much more nuanced and more fun. Ancient families opened their stately homes to the public for the first time. Dukes and duchesses came up with ever more imaginative ways to cling to their ancestral seats, and a new class of homeowners bought their way into country life. Rock stars, celebrities, Americans. There's quite a bit of that in here, but one thing I noticed about this book that is a little jarring is that if you flip through it just looking at the photos, there are photos sort of embedded throughout the whole book. There's Prince Charles fox hunting when he was a young boy. If you go through the photos, you get a very different impression of the book than if you read the book. The book is about non-celebrities. The book is not about Mick Jagger. So the photos give a little bit. Maybe it's just that they were the only ones that were available. Boy, oh boy, was this good, though. I saw it and thought, well, hasn't this been done to death a million times? Big a fan of English country houses as I am, I thought, hasn't this been done to death a million times? Isn't this basically David Carradine's The Rise and Fall of the British Aristocracy? Just like I had something of the same reaction to the author's book, The Long Weekend, about England between the wars. I thought, well, isn't this the same story as Robert Graves told in his book, The Long Weekend? But it turns out that, my dictum on this channel, that uniqueness, originality of subject choice matters almost not at all, except to the small coterie of book readers who are actually just drug addicts. Novelty matters a lot less than execution, unless you're getting high on novelty. Literally getting high on novelty, but otherwise, execution matters a whole lot more. I could take 10 books on the social life, the political ramifications of the decline of the English country house. I could take 10 of them in a row if they're as well done as this. So that's another finished copy. I'd be willing to bet these are all going to be finished copies. Let's see what this next one is. We won't go on forever here, though, because I have lots of other stuff to chit-chat with you about. Baby, what are we going to do here? You don't care. Oh, fantastic. Oh, boy. All right. First, I have to... See, this is made much like military ordnance. It's made to fragment under stress. Not because the portions will hurt anybody, like military ordnance, but because the people who make these packages hate book reviewers. Personally, hate them. But this is something I have been looking forward to. I'm going to read this tonight. This is by Douglas Volk, and it's called All of the Marvels. A journey to the ends of the biggest story ever told. And that is meant literally. Well, let me read you the description here. The superhero comic books that Marvel Comics has produced since 1961 are, in the author's notes, the longest continuous self-contained work of fiction ever created. Over 500,000 pages to date and still growing. The Marvel story is a gigantic mountain smack in the middle of contemporary culture. Thousands of writers and artists have contributed to it. Everyone recognizes its protagonists: Spider-Man, the Avengers, the X-Men. 18 of the 100 highest-grossing movies of all time are based on parts of it. Yet not even the people telling the story have read the whole thing. Nobody's supposed to. So, of course, that's what the author did. He read all 27,000 plus comics that make up the Marvel Universe thus far, from Alpha Flight to Omega the Unknown. I want to point out here, I think there are a few who are probably watching this video and howling in protest just a little, and I second that howl of protest. It's not quite true. It's not quite true that nobody has ever read all of Marvel Comics. That's not quite true. Since the Renaissance in Marvel Comics started by Stan Lee with Fantastic Four #1 to, let's say, 2015. We have to draw a stopping point somewhere. 2015, 2014, 2015 is when Marvel Comics became explicitly and stridently leftist political. Not the writers privately, not the writers when they're a little tipsy at the bar across the street from Marvel headquarters, but the comics themselves. Not just leftist, but stridently so. In other words, if you're not leftist, you're the enemy. You're the Red Skull. You're a Nazi. So if we draw the line there, when Marvel took a machine gun out of a case, made sure that it was fully loaded, and pointed it directly down at the wooden decking of the floor of their own boat. If we say that you can stop in 2014 or 2015, I bet there are a few people listening to me right now who have read all of those Marvel comics. But anyway, this author goes much further than just reading those comics. He maintains that they tell one gigantic cohesive story. And then he made sense of it seeing into the ever-expanding story in its parts and as a whole, and seeing through it as a prism through which to view the landscape of American culture. In Wolk's hands, the mammoth Marvel narrative becomes a funhouse mirror history of the past 60 years, from the atomic night terrors of the Cold War to the technocracy and political division of the present day, a boisterous, tragicomic, magnificently filigreed epic about power and ethics set in a world transformed by wonders. As a work of cultural exegesis, this is sneakily significant, even a landmark. It's also ludicrously fun. Well, I should hope so. So who is the author when he's at home? Well, we know one thing about him, right? We know that he's got no blue M&Ms in his bag. But let's see. He's the author of the Eisner Award-winning Reading Comics and the host of the podcast Voice of Latveria. A National Arts Journalism Program Fellow, he has written about comic books, graphic novels, pop music, and technology for a whole slew of venues. And he lives in Portland, which I guess is not all that surprising. Oh, fantastic. Incredible. And this is, of course, illustrated throughout. Although it looks to me, on first glance, like it doesn't have much in the way of color illustrations. There's Thor, facing off against first Hercules and then Better Ray Bill. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be able to sit content with the implied contention that the author is the only one who's dragged his way through all of these things. I have, and I bet a lot of you have as well. All of the Marvels. I don't have a sheet on this, so I don't know when this comes out. This is a finished copy, so I'm assuming early November. And then we have the last package here, and then we'll be done. Although this has been such a great mail haul that I'm perfectly okay. I have to destroy this thing because the insides are adhesive. So if you don't tear it into bits and pieces, it's going to stick to everything. You don't want it sticking to your little bean, do you? I don't want it sticking to my little bean. No, I don't. So what's this next one? Oh, fantastic. Oh, boy, I tell you. Book publicists are the nicest people. I mentioned that I showed you the other day Island Infernos, the second book in John McManus's series about the Pacific Theater in World War II. I just got Island Infernos, and I mentioned to the publicist that I did not anymore have a copy of the first book, Fire and Fortitude, so they sent it to me. Great. So I can review this. I'll reread this first, and that'll jump me right into Island Infernos. Great. Although I did read this and review it when it first came out and thought it was terrific. Just terrific. Great. Okay. Wow. What a mail haul. What a mail haul. So we have Fire and Fortitude. The first book in the series about World War II in the Pacific. All of the Marvels. About not only every single Marvel comic ever written, every superhero comic, but also how they fit together as a whole. We have, let's see here, Noble Ambitions by Adrian Tinniswood, finished copy, very nice. We have Brothers in Arms by James Holland, so World War II, again, in this pile here. We have Oceans of Grain, in which the author stipulates that wheat is the crop to watch, that wheat explains human civilization. And then we have periodicals. So great. Fantastic. What a mail haul. So I have a lot to sink my teeth into. Plus, a Kirkus book. A physical, printed Kirkus book. Very strange. Very strange. Don't know if that's ever going to go back to what it was. I'm not sure that the publishing industry in any arm is going to go back to the way it was. If COVID and all of its variants ever actually do come under control, if they ever actually do lessen, become an endemic thing, a thing that's just part of our life instead of something that's stopping things. Even if that happens, a lot of industries are looking around and saying, well, okay, we can go back to the way we did things before, but why would we? So I think the publishing industry is going to be one of those things, but very happy to have a mail haul like this in the meantime. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.